Thank you very much. So my name is Patrick Hall. I'm the board president. Joining me today is our executive director, Liz Stenning, Dan Eernissee from the city of Everett, and we have a special guest, Breanne Durham from Washington Main Street. So looks like somebody told you already to please introduce yourselves in the chat window with the name and your organization. So it seems like it's been a long time since last year's annual meeting when we were able to shake your hand in person and give you lots of good food from Cafe UU. And it seems like the biggest problems we had to worry about in downtown were finding a place to park, Rucker renewal, and Lime scooters on the sidewalk. So it's been a long year for a lot of us, but I think you'll see that the Downtown Everett Association was able to make a huge push for accomplishing long-standing goals, and it's been probably the most productive year of our history. Next. So thank you to our 2020 sponsors. You might notice we didn't have any 2019 sponsors. This is the first year we've ever done fundraising. We didn't really need to in the past, but now that we're a Main Street community, we realized that we needed to be able to fund our revitalization work. So thank you to everybody on this list. And next slide. Just a second here. So when the DEA became a Main Street community on January 1st, one of the benefits of that was that it qualified our donors for a substantial tax credit on their B&O taxes from Washington State. So for example, if a company gives us $1,000 this year, they get $750 back from the state next year. If you'd like to participate in this program, please talk to us. So two companies in particular have already made use of that. They jumped in on the first day. Heritage Bank made a very generous donation to us. And the response from the business community on this has been immediate and exciting. So Coastal Community Bank made a very large donation to us. And on behalf of the Downtown Everett Association, I would like to thank Coastal for their belief in us, for their belief in Downtown Everett, and for their belief in the Main Street program. And I believe we have Laura Byers from Coastal in the meeting. Laura, if you're here, would you like to say a few words?
I am here and I'd love to say a couple words. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking all of you because it's you who made this possible and it's you who got the organization to the Main Street status, and that's important. Coastal really believes that community involvement and activism is what makes a difference, and that's why we're so excited to support an effort like this, because we know that all of you and your businesses and your organizations and this organization are going to be the ones who lead us out of the pandemic issues and revitalize all of the economy. So just happy to be able to support. This is one of the most significant donations we've made, and it's because of the tax credit and because we believe in what you're going to do with Main Street. So thank you for giving us the opportunity, and good luck, and we're excited to see what you do and to partner with you.
Sorry, I was muted. Okay, thank you, Laura. Next slide, please. Okay, before I talk more about the DEA, let me talk about Downtown Everett. So Downtown Everett is now 130 years old. Hewitt Avenue was cut through the forest in 1891. And for the first time, we have some actual data on downtown. This is something that Main Street requires. And these are things that we're going to be tracking over the years. Interesting factoid is that 83% of the buildings in our downtown district are greater than 50 years old. There's one particular statistic I want to draw your attention to, and that's the one at the bottom, the 12% retail vacancy. This is something that's really a measure of, economic activity in downtown. And for example, in Bellingham, they started in 2010 with an 11% retail vacancy, and by 2018, they were able to drive that down to under 4% in 8 years using the Main Street program. So it can be done. Next slide, please. So our mission at the DEA is to create a healthy, vibrant urban core. We also came up, we updated our vision statement in 2020. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but that really reflects kind of our new focus on revitalization, Main Street style. And as we continue to evolve in the future, we may update that again when we do a strategic planning in 2021. Next. I'd like to introduce you to our amazing 2021 Board of Directors. These are 13 of some of the most skilled people that I know. Huge age range from people in their 20s to people in their 70s who represent a broad range of interests and have a broad range of abilities. So the baby actually is not a board member. We require all of our board members to be out of diapers, and we're pretty strict about that. So next slide, please. So 3 things that we do. The Downtown Improvement District, formerly known as the BIA, parking management, and revitalization. Next. So what Main Street is it's a nationwide economic development program that's designed specifically for older and historic downtowns like Everett. It is a different kind of economic development. It's more grassroots. It's really focused on quality of life. It's focused on people and not so much on, big companies. It has kind of more of an emphasis on having a number of, a multitude of small businesses rather than trying to, use tax breaks or something to lure a big one. It's focused on what you already have rather than on what you don't have. And it's focused on just daily constant incremental growth rather than on a, high risk, quick fix kind of solution. So next. So Downtown Improvement District, this is something you're all probably familiar with. We've been doing this since January of 1996. So we're now 25 years old. The way this works is kind of like a homeowners association for a downtown. The city assesses property owners within the district, the majority of which have agreed to be assessed. And every day the city contracts that out to us. And so we do sidewalk cleaning, garbage pickup, graffiti removal, stuff like that. Next. So for nearly all of those 25 years, we've been contracting out that clean team to a third party. We realized over the past couple of years that we thought that we could do this much more economically and more efficiently if we brought these services in-house. So we took the plunge, and in 2020, we bought our own truck, we hired our own crew, basically started our own company. So these 2 brave and loyal men you see here are some of our downtown superheroes that keep it clean every day. And it's a 7-day-a-week operation. So in 2020, we cleaned up over 2,000 graffiti tags. Imagine what downtown would look like if we weren't doing that. We picked up 10,000 bags of garbage and over 100,000 cigarette butts. And one thing I'd like to add is that if there's something that you need, a service request, please don't hesitate to call us. Next. So parking management, we manage the Everett Park garage for the city. It's not our garage, belongs to them, but we manage it. It was built in 1971, so it's now 50 years old. Any additional revenues left over are reinvested in the community via our revitalization programs. We also advocate for better parking policies. Next. So the third thing that we do is our new revitalization programs, which are made possible because of our membership in the Main Street organization. You could think of the DID as defense, and our revitalization program is offense. These include things like small business support, flowers, holiday lights, events like our trick or treat event, and parking advocacy. Next. We implement the Main Street program in the DEA partly through our 5 volunteer committees. The first 4 of them represent what they call the 4 points of Main Street. They're economic vitality, design, promotion, and organization. And we snuck a fifth committee in there, which technically parking and transportation is part of the design point, but you know, parking is enough of an issue in downtown Everett. You remember in 2019, it became very constrained, that we felt we needed a committee just to address that one. Next. So economic vitality is about recruiting and fostering small businesses. Design is about physical spaces like the flowers and the holiday lights. Promotion is about sort of positioning downtown as the center of cultural and economic life in the city. Includes things like events like the Trick or Treat event, Small Business Saturday, and the Heart of Downtown Everett box that's currently going on right now. Organization is about developing partnerships. They also do things like they organize our volunteers, they kind of come up with a fundraising plan, and those kind of things. And parking and transportation is about making sure that people can get to our downtown and that they're able to easily access it. Next. So among our fantastic achievements of 2020, one of the very first things that we did is to hire Liz. She didn't want me to talk about her too much, but I'll talk about her for a moment. She grew up here in Everett. She has a master's in urban planning, and she is now a career downtown professional. We stole her away from the Alliance for Pioneer Square, where she worked for 9 years and was the deputy director. And she's been a fantastic addition to our team. Another thing that we did, so in late 2019, we started working on a new brand identity to replace the kind of the cute blue one we had before. And we were able to launch that in the beginning of 2020. Next. So as far as the garage contract goes, this is another thing we had to do in 2020. It comes up for renewal periodically, and last year the city actually put it out for bid, not because they didn't like us, but because it's just considered to be a good practice, good financial practice to do that once in a while. So we actually had to go and bid against a couple other companies. But the fact that we're a nonprofit that's focused on, you know, helping downtown gave us a competitive advantage, and we won the contract for a few more years. When COVID happened, we had to pivot towards doing business support. So we partnered with the city on the Everett for Everett website. We partnered with them on distribution of our open signs. We did business outreach and advocacy. So Liz and Dana went and knocked on a lot of doors, visited a lot of businesses to find out what their needs were. We did a webinar on the Everett Cares program to help businesses navigate that process. Next. So the flower program, this was really probably one of the most crazy ambitious projects I've ever worked on, just because of the schedule involved. Doing a project this complex from scratch in a month was very challenging and very exciting. We've got a lot of press about this. The mayor mentioned it this morning in her State of Everett program. But basically we had to hire summer help. Josiah here had to establish contracts. We had to, you know, buy the flowers, set up a volunteer program. But the support from the community was amazing, and with hundreds of volunteers participating in it, you know, we got it done. We also, so the DEA is what they call a 501c6 nonprofit, which is a more appropriate tax status for the type of fee-for-service type of nonprofit that we've been in the past. And we realized that with our Main Street affiliation, we needed to start doing more fundraising, and a 501c3 was a more efficient way to do that. So we established a 501c3 subsidiary called Downtown Everett Partners. And most of the people on that first slide, the 2020 donors, contributed through Downtown Everett Partners. Next. So I've already mentioned that we brought the clean team in-house. The application process to become a Main Street community was no small feat in and of itself. The application was 87 pages. Breanne wanted to know just about everything there was to know about our organization and our downtown. And not everybody gets accepted their first year, but fortunately we did. Thank you, Breanne, for that. Next. We were not able to do our popular downtown Halloween event this year for obvious reasons. So we did a Halloween scavenger hunt. At last year's annual meeting, the only item on the work plan that got applause from the audience was when we talked about maybe doing a holiday lighting program. So we knew that we had to do that. This was the first project that we funded through the Downtown Everett Partners. We initially seeded that fund with $11,000 in personal contributions from our own board members. And we spent much of that money on holiday lights, phase 1, which was lighting up the pergola, the quadrangle pergola at the corner of Hewitt and Colby. And as you can see there, excuse me, as you can see there, we bought 8 of these 6-foot snowflakes. They don't look that big when they're up in the air, but they're taller than I am. And 4 of these lit wreaths. And I think it looked quite festive. And there'll be more to come next year. Next. So our staffer, Madison, who is driving the slides right now, created a beautiful holiday shopping guide with this cute seagull with a beanie, which I think is kind of the quintessential Everett. And also to support the Small Business Saturday event, she also designed these swanky new tote bags. Next. So the Downtown Improvement District exists by city ordinance, and it sunsets at regular intervals, and we had to renew that this year. So we got a 5-year sunset on it this time. And we added one additional block that we've been looking at for a number of years. It's the block of Colby just south of downtown that we felt was very much part of downtown. And 80% of the property owners on that block signed on to support that. And we're going to be extending our flower program onto that next year. We've already started cleaning services as of January 2nd, I think. Next slide. With that, I would like to introduce our special guest, Breanne Durham, the Washington Main Street Coordinator. Very happy to have you here today with us, Breanne. And if you don't mind, I guess we could start with the video and then you could go on after if you don't mind.
That sounds great, Patrick.
Thank you.
It's hard not to take note of what's been happening in Wheeling over the past several years. I just can't imagine doing something else or being somewhere else. It's a perfect fit. It's changing, it's hopeful, and it's creative. I feel like there's a positive vibe happening now.
When I was a young man here, Wheeling was seen as a place that, yeah, it was great for your grandparents' generation, great for your parents' generation, but there really wasn't a future here.
Wheeling Pittsburgh Steel, which was a major industry here in Wheeling, decreased its employment quite a bit through the 90s. You could feel vacancy and the reduction in the population, or reduction in the businesses.
Only in about, I would say, the last 6 to 8 years has there been sort of this wave of young people that are trying really hard to turn things around, and it's working, and it's contagious.
Wheeling Heritage has been able to accomplish as much as they have because of their strong partnership. I'm always amazed at the people that they bring to the table.
The Main Street approach is very comprehensive. It's constantly about looking at how do we allow more people in our community to be engaged.
We have a concert series, Lunchtime Live. That kind of hits on all 4 points, right? You're engaging the community, you're bringing other stakeholders, you're getting people to use a public space, and you're getting them to go to local restaurants. Using the 4-point approach instead of just having a drop in the bucket, one-time event. That's why a program like that works.
Bringing the Main Street program into Wheeling Heritage has been a great natural fit. We both want to see these older buildings stay. We both want to see a downtown Wheeling become that hub again that it used to be.
Buildings are so iconic. Their reuse is so important to our future.
We went out and really led advocacy efforts for an increase in the state historic tax credit, and we've seen results from that.
All the states around West Virginia had a 25% state tax credit, whereas we only had a 10% credit. That was frustrating.
There are many projects happening that wouldn't have been able to happen without the historic tax credit.
There are so many opportunities that we have with vacant buildings, but new buildings are just as important because these vacant lots need uses as well.
We just had the health plan headquarters built a couple of years ago. I can say with absolute certainty that that would not have happened had it not been for all the preservation projects, which paved the way for the first new building in 30-something years.
Bringing 450 people downtown changes the dynamics of day-to-day life here. There was a sense of contribution that we wanted to make to be that spark that begins to rejuvenate a downtown area.
Since 2015, we've seen more than 2,000 more employees working downtown Wheeling.
Coming into Wheeling 10 years ago, there were a lot of vacant storefronts. The past couple years, that has certainly changed.
So we had plenty of people working with Wheeling Heritage and doing their own thing as well to get that vacancy rate lowered from 32% vacancy rate to 15% in 3 years. I feel like finally the tide has turned, and that's definitely been evident through co-starters and through the show of hands program that Wheeling Heritage puts on.
Show of Hands is a community-supported grant-making program. Businesses or community projects present their ideas. The one that gets the most votes receives money that's raised at the door and through our corporate sponsors and community sponsors.
I pitched an idea to put some money into the courtyard area, which we're sitting in right now. The community chose my project, so I got awarded the money, and without Wheeling Heritage, I don't think this would be possible.
To know that we're helping to change the conversation about what's possible here, and that some young kids are actually thinking about staying here is so very exciting.
I'm excited to see the continued growth of the residential area. It is a very exciting time in downtown Wheeling.
There's like momentum, there's a buzz here, things are happening, there are new businesses, people are excited about it, there's energy here.
There was a time in Wheeling where everybody looked backward. Now people are saying, well, what's next? What's coming now? We have so much potential here to be a place where people are excited and proud to be from and excited to go to.
Well, great idea to Patrick and Liz for including that in the presentation today. Madison, are you sharing my slides as well, or should I do that myself?
I will be sharing those for you.
Great, thank you.
I heard that there was a delay. Apparently I lost the screen entirely, so never mind. We will make that video available after as well, since there may have been some weird audio stuff that might have been distracting. But Breanne, I will get your slides up next.
Well, I personally thought the message came across really well, but I do encourage folks to look at that video again. And there are others that Main Street America, sort of our parent organization, puts together every year. Wheeling was a Great American Main Street Award winner. And I actually think that they were given their award on stage in Seattle when we hosted the national conference there 2 springs ago, and I know a lot of you were there. So that's a really good segue to say big congratulations to Everett. You know, we're so excited to have you as a designated Washington Main Street community. We know how very hard you have worked to get to that designation. And as Patrick said, we don't make it particularly easy because it is such a big thing to get your organization to a place where you can implement the kind of vision that you saw in that Wheeling video. Just a very quick introduction for myself. I have been in this role as the director of Washington Main Street since 2015. And before that, I served for 5 years as a local Main Street director in my hometown, as Liz is now doing, in Lewiston, Idaho. So suffice it to say, I really believe in this model, and I'm always very excited to get to know local folks who are excited to be using it too. Just doing a double check. Oh, thank you, Madison. Okay. And so we can actually go ahead and move past this first one right away. Patrick and Liz actually suggested that I could share some of the information that we presented just yesterday to some state legislators about the impact of Main Street in Washington. And first, I just have to say that I think several of you who spoke already, you know, including Laura and Patrick, this video certainly spoke to it as well. really touched on how critical the Main Street movement has been across the nation, especially during COVID. It has been around for 40 years, and it's always been about small businesses. At its core, it's been about bringing people together to support these authentic, beautiful places in which we live. And we know that small businesses are really the crux of our downtown communities. And I personally, having been in this field for over a decade now, I've never been more inspired by the work that Main Street can do than in this year. One of the words you used, Patrick, was proactive. And I think that's absolutely true. Certainly we've been rather reactive over the last year, but in a way that actually builds a lot of hope for the Main Street districts in our network. And so I'm really happy to share some of that information with you today. If you want to go ahead, it's worth mentioning, especially since you all are just recently designated as a Washington Main Street community, to explain very briefly that our program is rather unique in that we really embody that public-private partnership that we preach at the local level. It's actually a state program. That's part of why there are rather hefty criteria for becoming a designated community, and also why you now have the ability to take advantage of a state tax credit. So it's a program of the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, which we call DAP. But DAP chooses to contract the program out to a nonprofit called the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation. And that's who I work for. We happily manage it on behalf of the state. And I just mentioned this in part so that you know that you've got the support of a state agency and a statewide preservation nonprofit behind you. And in our network, thanks Madison, there are currently 66 towns represented. We have 2 different designations. Everett had been an affiliate for several years, and you just moved up, so to speak, through the application process to become a designated Main Street community. And I just really want to emphasize that we applaud you for this very much, because you really need to have strong staff. You need to have strong committees and a really strong board and support from so many of the people who I know are part of this annual meeting today to make that happen. So a big congratulations to you. Now, I mentioned that you can take advantage of that tax credit incentive program now. And we could spend quite a bit of time talking about that. But I just wanted to share this slide, which is to say that the tax credit program is capped at 2.5 million. We, through some advocacy efforts a few years ago, moved it up from 1.5 million. And it continues to prove its value in terms of businesses taking advantage of it up to that state cap every single year. And we have some procedures in place to make sure that it's as equitable as possible. But we're just very proud that Washington State has this kind of program, because we are the only state that actually offers any sort of tax credit or incentive at the state level that's specifically for Main Street communities. And now here's really kind of the meat of what I wanted to chat with you about today. We did a study about a year ago that tracked various types of impact that Washington Main Street communities, of which you are now one, had in terms of community impact, economic impact, and fiscal impact over a period of time from 2011 to 2019. And some of the things that were really illuminating from this study were just the sheer reach of this network. And again, we're only talking about designated Main Street communities, not the affiliates. And so we found out from that there were nearly 7,000 businesses in Main Street districts across the state, that those businesses created almost $10 billion over this in that 1 year of 2019 in terms of revenue, and that they represented 65,000 plus employees. And we are now also able to say that 1 in 4 residents in Washington State lives within 5 miles of a main street. And it's very safe to say that with Everett now in that mix, that percentage increases. So in addition to the community impact, we also learned about the economic impact. As you are all becoming more and more familiar with the Main Street approach, whether you're a board member, a business owner, if you're starting to get involved as a volunteer, you're going to realize that, as Patrick really explained well earlier, there's so many different things that a Main Street program like DEA takes on. You know, you're working in the public spaces of your downtown on parking and flowers and other enhancements. You're working directly with the small businesses, providing them support, finding tools for them. You're working on communicating the vision that you all have and getting your partners involved in that vision. You're marketing the district and hosting events. And every one of those types of activities that a Main Street program takes on has an economic impact, meaning we know from this study that there are business sales attributable to each of those different types of activities that would not have been expected had it not been for the presence of a Main Street program. And similarly, and in fact, as a direct result of that business activity, there's state revenue that is attributable to a Main Street program activity. The state would not have expected without the presence of Main Street. And this is information that I've always wanted to have because we knew how effective the work of Main Street programs across the state has been. But now we can say with a lot of confidence that for every dollar the state has invested in Washington Main Street, meaning the program that I run, plus all of that tax credit incentive money over the period of this study, for every dollar they've invested, they've gotten $1.58 back in terms of tax revenue that would not have been expected without the efforts of Main Street programs. We're extremely proud to know that and extremely grateful as well because we are entering a session with the legislature where we're hoping that they acknowledge the real value of programs like yours. And then this information is something rather unique that we captured from the Main Street communities at the end of 2020. And so while Everett was not part of this particular data collection period, I know from working with Liz and Patrick that the types of efforts I'm about to share also were conducted by your program. And just want to give you major kudos for everything you all did, especially in a transition year as it was with hiring a new director and making so many changes to your program, so many improvements, and applying for Main Street. You also had an incredible COVID response to help your small businesses. So in this survey of the then 34 Main Street communities, I was incredibly impressed to see, though not surprised, how involved they were in distributing federal and state funding. One of the things that I think is so powerful about Main Street programs is that they are really doing this people-centered economic development work. You all know business owners in your districts better than a lot of state and even local support systems that they might have. And so when it came to administering CARES funding, almost a third of Main Streets actually did that administrative work. 2/3 served on the planning and selection committees. Almost every single one promoted grants and loans to small businesses. And this is the piece that I was so impressed by. About 2/3 actually directly assisted small businesses with their PPP applications. And I can't emphasize enough how the type of work that a Main Street program does, it's just boots on the ground, knowing the small businesses, being that contact for them. It's kept a lot of people going, both in terms of having the relationships with fellow business owners in the district and the Main Street program, but also that really responsive, nimble kind of service provider that we know you all are. And then some of the other sort of COVID response pieces that we captured were about the money that Main Street programs actually put forth in terms of COVID response. So there was so much put forward to directly support small businesses. And again, this is cumulative data from those 34 designated in 2020. They spent so much on marketing and promoting small businesses, as well as public health messaging. And then there was also just an incredible movement in terms of design enhancements to benefit small businesses. I'm sure you have all experienced kind of firsthand how valuable it's been to have public spaces like sidewalks and parking lots and plazas for gathering, but also for commerce. We even captured the square footage that was activated, and I realized 342,000 plus is just a big number. But if you were to average that out, it was over 10,000 square feet on average in every Main Street community that was activated for commercial purposes, specifically to help small businesses. Our Main Street programs also distributed a heck of a lot of masks and other PPE, again, because of those relationships and connections and partnerships that are just so core to how we operate. And I asked the Main Street directors if they would estimate the number of small businesses who benefited from the various types of support they provided. And my experience is that Main Street directors almost always underestimate their impact. But you can see here on the screen, thousands of businesses were directly supported by the works of Main Street. And I'm incredibly proud, but also, again, unsurprised at how effective they have been over the last year in particular. And so that sort of wraps up what I wanted to share with you today. I started saying something, I think back in March, as we were seeing, the impacts of COVID-19 on the economy, and really on our communities as well. It just really struck me that Main Street was built for this. And we've really internalized that in the Washington Main Street Network since, the connections that Main Street programs have, the type of work that they do, how creative and responsive they can be. It's made a world of difference in the last year. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share some of this with you today. And thank you for everything I know that you're all part of locally in Everett too. We're just really thrilled to have you as a designated Main Street community.
Thank you so much, Breanne. Thanks for calling into our meeting and giving us that wonderful presentation. I'd next like to introduce Dan Eernissee, who is the Economic Development Director for the City of Everett.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you to Breanne and the whole Main Street organization. I think business is about relationships and community, and you're teaching us how to do that better and to organize better, and we really appreciate it. As you can see from my brand new virtual background, I love the history of a place. It gives it integrity. It gives it substance. This is the historic Everett Theater, back when it was obviously a movie theater in a different way than it is now. But I don't want to talk about history today, though. I want to talk about the future because it's just been such a hellacious 2020. Before I go on to talk about what I am going to, I just put in the chat a link to the YouTube recording of Mayor Cassie Franklin's State of Everett address this morning. It was an interview with Chris Mefford, who is an economist from the area and well-versed in Snohomish County, and it's definitely worth watching. If you like this kind of thing, you'll definitely want to watch Cassie's address. But I'll be honest, I went to college in the 80s. Back then, a night wasn't complete without David Letterman's Top 10 List. Ever since, I've been a big fan. Last year, I launched my first DEA annual meeting, Top 10 Lists, and today you're going to get my second annual one. But like I said, I don't want to go with the past. I want to look forward to the future and talk about reasons for optimism for 2021. So number 10 on my list, Boeing will be part of Everett forever. That's a quote from Stan Deal at the dark days of when Everett was, when people were coming up to me and say, is Boeing shutting down completely in Everett? And I said, no, no, no. It's like there's multiple lines. It's not what you're thinking. But that it's been really dark for Boeing. I mean, first it was trade wars with China. Second, it was the 737 MAX. Now it's the 787 moving. It's not the best days for the city of Everett and Boeing working together. The 747, which started to be rolling off the lines 50 years ago, is coming to an end. But we have a future. And guess what? Everett without Boeing is still a really robust economy. With Boeing, we're a juggernaut. So that's one reason for optimism. Boeing's going to be here forever. Number 9, PAE. Remember PAE launching about 2 years ago? Fanfare hit 1 million customers in less than a year, exceeded its own projections, flying, connecting us to all kinds of different cities, got named the best regional airport in the world. And then COVID hit, almost exactly a year after it opened. We haven't seen the last of PAE. It is going to come roaring back. Its impact, I can see it on the recruiting scale. Businesses that would never look at Everett before PAE are looking at Everett now because of the connectivity that it provides to the West Coast. And as our region grows, PAE's reach is going to grow in the nation, certainly, with more flights and more connections. Number 8, Naval Station Everett. We don't talk a ton about it, but it's steadily growing. I think all of us are disappointed that there's no aircraft carrier group with its thousands of sailors and so forth and families and so forth, but it's steadily growing. The destroyer count is going up. We're adding 3 in the next year or so. That comes with crews, it comes with specialists, and we're a young base, but we're a strategic base because we're a deep water port on the Pacific Ocean, and the Pacific Ocean is where a lot of the Navy is going to put its investment. So we look forward to growing with it. Number 7, the Port of Everett has its act together right now. It's really getting a lot of great projects underway, and they range from both shipbuilding to light industrial, redoing contaminated mill sites into light industrial. They finished up the Riverside one, and now they're working on the Baywood Business Park. But then also, hotels and residents and restaurants that they're providing along the waterfront. So the whole spectrum down there, and they're providing a lot of great living wage jobs. And so the connection from the Grand Avenue Park Bridge to the Port of Everett is very key too. And I look forward to really seeing how that plays out in 2021. Number 6, industries will discover Everett. Here's a photo of InFarm. It's a vertical hydroponic gardening operation that sells salad greens and herbs at Kroger stores. And I listed off, I mean, this is like Maddie's shopping bag, right? Berlin, Tokyo, Toronto, Everett. I mean, yeah, that's where InFarm is. That's where they've expanded, because Everett has a unique position in the upper left corner. We are the north anchor of the commerce center of the greater Seattle metro area. Number 5, teleworkers like it too, not just industries, but teleworkers love all the things that make up Everett and who we are, and they're moving here. Number 4, riverfront, waterfront, which both kind of bracket downtown Everett. Riverfront to the southeast, waterfront to the northwest, and Everett Mall are all what I call lifestyle centers. And Everett Mall is tired, but it's the owners are demollifying it over the next few years, and they're they're probably going to be at work with that pretty hot and heavy in 2021. And so you'll see, you're already seeing waterfront. Riverfront just picked up a permit from our office in December that was worth, their permit fee was $3 million. So you can tell eventually that'll add about 1,250 homes and grocery store and so forth. This is a photo of, a rendering of the Riverfront project. So a lot of exciting stuff coming our way and providing new options for Everett. I'd like to introduce number 3 with another short video that Greater Seattle Partners put out. I'll let Maddie do it.
Actually, Liz said that we are not going to have time for the video.
Oh,
so
okay.
put the link
That's fine.
in the chat. Oh, I
Send
think
a link.
Liz said to
So
go.
let's go on. Number 3. Went to number 3, Everett leaders are going to guide a top 10 economy. Seattle just surpassed Atlanta as the number 10 economy, greater metro Everett area, which Everett is included in that. Number 10 in the country. And in my experience, I grew up in this region. Everett was kind of off by itself a lot and kind of insular. No more. Everett is a leader in this economy. And here's Cassie Franklin, our mayor, first elected mayor of Everett, flanked by Executive Summers and Brian McGowan from Greater Seattle Partners. These are just some of the leaders, as well as people on this call, who are going to guide our city forward in a very, very positive way. Number 2, we've got a great placemaking strategy at the city of Everett, as well as with DEA and the multiple partners. I don't know if when Patrick showed that list, the number of venues, the number of sports teams, the number of different arts institutions that are all located within the square mile of the downtown Everett is impressive. And those are the kinds of institutions that grow deep, deep roots. And the growth that comes out of that is the best kind of growth. And finally, the number 1 reason, and we've already talked about this, but the Downtown Everett Association is really going to blossom this year, building on the momentum from 2020. Patrick had a long presentation because there were so many different things that happened in 2020. But that momentum is going to carry us through 2021 into the coming years. And so I just want to conclude by thanking everyone that's been a part of our past, but more important, thanking you who are on this call, who are committing to be part of what happens in 2021. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. So I'd like to introduce Liz Stanning, the DEA Executive Director.
Hi, everyone. I'll start talking while Maddie cues up the show. So we don't have a whole lot of time here, so I'll try to be fairly brief, but I want to give you a few highlights of projects we're working on in 2021. And I also want to say I don't know all of you on this call, and I really look forward to meeting everyone in the future. I will wait for the show. Can anyone see it?
Not yet. I'm almost there.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, so I want to mention a few highlights that we're working on this year, and then I'll mention some specific things that our committees are working on. So in 2021, we'll be working on a cohesive transformation or revitalization strategy to help guide our work in the next 3 to 5 years. We're really excited to overhaul our website and promote downtown Everett as a place to be, shop, dine, etc. We're going to be fine-tuning our clean team operations and diving in to make sure that they're just at the best that they can be. We're also going to be working with the city, if you can believe it, on automating the Everett Park garage. And now that we're a Main Street community, we're going to be diving into more trainings. Yesterday was my first Main Street manager training. It was just amazing to meet all the 30 some odd towns around the state. And we have tons of resources to share for our community and board and staff. So we can go into our committee work. Our committees, like Patrick mentioned, we have 4 or 5 of them. 4 are sort of the traditional Main Street model. We actually have more projects that we could have shared on the slide, but I just want to highlight a few here. So our Economic Vitality Committee is going to be working on a new business owners orientation kit. They'll all be working hard on tracking our Downtown Everett stats. And this will be important for us to be able to see progress and change over time. The design committee is going to go back and work on the downtown flower program. We'll be expanding at a block, as well as looking to the future on what we might change over the coming years. We'll be expanding the holiday lighting program, like Patrick we had the start this year at Hewitt and Colby, and we're hoping to expand down Colby with more lights, and then in the future years expand to even more streets. Events. Well, events have been interesting, right? But the promotion committee continues to work on events. We have an event or a promotion right now, the Valentine's Day box, which I'll talk about in a sec. We'll be working on trick-or-treating and the holidays. And we also have a coffee promotion that we're working on that will launch soon. And our organization committee is working hard on developing a series of fundraising campaigns, as well as formalizing a volunteer program. And then our parking and transportation committee, one project they'll be working on is developing a shared parking program. So what this is essentially trying to find private parking lots to utilize to expand our parking capacity in downtown Everett, and in partnering with those private parking owners. And next slide, please. So I mentioned our Valentine's box. So we're calling it the Heart of Downtown Everett box. We have pre-sales going on right now. It's a limited supply, and it's a bit of a pilot project for us. So basically what we've done is gathered a bunch of goods from different downtown businesses and then sell it to all of you who want to buy it. And then if it's successful and it goes well and we love it and you all love it, we can use this for other events, like maybe it's Mother's Day or the holidays. So we're really excited to try this out. Next slide. And our flower program will be ramping up pretty soon here, and you may want to get involved. So some different ways you could get involved would be to volunteer. We have yet to pick the day. What we understand is that the flowers are being grown right now from seed in a greenhouse in Snohomish. So we need to work with that grower to find out when they're ready, but anticipate May. You could also adopt, and maintain flowers. So this picture here shows a flower pot that was cared for by a Girl Scout troop. They actually made their own sign and stuck a little butterfly in there. I think we had about 60 volunteers who adopted somewhere between 2 to 3 planters. So that will also be available to you as well. And then of course you could donate to support the flower program. We're basically running this flower program through donations. So any donation helps, and we're excited for the flowers to come back again. Next slide. So I'm going to transition, and this will be in the last few minutes we have or so. This year we have something new, which is to celebrate Downtown Everett Association 2020 Volunteer of the Year. I will say this person unfortunately was not able to attend because they had a prior engagement. But I want to go ahead, and you can go to the next slide. We want to thank Paul Popelka. So I guess if we were all in a room, we'd be clapping and saying high fives. So Paul, he's a DEA board member, and he's on our design committee. He also serves on the Historic Everett board. So Paul, we track volunteer time, and on paper, just in meetings, Paul put in well over 50 hours just in the sort of, hour meeting here or there. But what you don't know is Paul put in lots more hours tending the flowers. This is a picture of Paul when he spent some days over a period of 3 weeks deadheading and watering the plants at Patrick's backyard. We had over, almost 3,000 plants that we needed to take care of so they didn't die before we got them in the pots. This is a picture of Paul with Stephanie Prothero. They're under the tent trying to stay dry on the planting day. And they had to arrange all those plants into different little boxes to give out to the volunteers to do our socially distanced event. So Paul, I have a few words to say about Paul that people told me. Paul is kind, humble, reliable, hardworking, and he just figures out how to get things done. And I know that we would not have been as successful with the flower program without Paul's help. So thank you, Paul. And also, just before we met, Patrick and I took a picture and sent these lovely items to Paul. So we have a plaque, which was designed by a volunteer, and we have a nice cap, which is what our DID crew is wearing out in the field. So we're excited to give this to Paul, and I'm going to turn it over to Patrick to close out the meeting. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much, Liz. And by the way, you know, we texted that to Paul, and he just now, right as you were presenting that, he texted me back. He just said, thank you. He's honored and humbled. He really does appreciate all of the work that we do and everyone involved in the group. So, you know, we actually, looks like we have 2 or 3 minutes. Did you want to show Dan's video? No? Okay. Well, I'm going to be, I think Liz and I are going to be hanging around for a few minutes if anybody has any questions, but this concludes the formal program. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And if you have any questions, just unmute and speak up.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Have a great 2021.